At the Sweet Delights Patisserie, located in the elegant Kensington neighbourhood of London, Reginald Alistair was concluding another day of successful sales. Known as the celebrity pastry chef of London, his establishment served the city's elite with artisanal cakes and refined sweets that cost small fortunes. The aroma of Belgian chocolate and French vanilla still lingered in the air as he tallied the day's earnings. £420,000 just today, Ms. Teresa. Our gourmet chocolate truffles were a hit at the Canary Wharf event, he commented to the manager, a middle-aged woman with a stern gaze, who was adjusting the crystal display case for closing. The investment bank staff have already ordered 300 more units for next week's cocktail party, she replied, with evident satisfaction in her eyes. We're going to close the best month in Sweet Delight's history. It was at that moment that the tempered glass door with golden details opened timidly. Reginald looked up, expecting to see some late socialite looking for a treat for dinner. Instead, a thin girl, approximately 9 years old, entered the establishment hesitantly. Her curly, disheveled hair framed a small face, and her bare feet left subtle marks on the Italian marble floor. "What do you want here, girl?" "We're closing," Teresa immediately said, her voice sharp and her eyebrows arched in disapproval. Reginald observed the little girl with curiosity. Her simple dress was clean but visibly worn, and she carried a small, colourful backpack on her back. There was something in her eyes, large, dark, and deep, that conveyed an unusual mix of shyness and determination. "Sorry to bother you," the girl said in a soft, polite voice that contrasted with her simple appearance. "My name is Sophia Sanders, and today is my 9th birthday. I've never had a real cake, and I thought maybe I could have a little piece that was left over, even if it's from what's going to be thrown away." The request, made with such dignity by someone so small, provoked opposite reactions in the two adults. Teresa snorted, incredulous. "This isn't a charity, girl. Our cakes cost at least £200 a slice. Go home and ask your mother to make a simple cake." Sophia did not flinch from the hostility. With her eyes fixed on the floor, she explained, "My mother isn't here anymore. I live with my Aunt June in Shoreditch, but she's sick and can't make a cake. I just wanted to know what it's like to have a cake on your birthday." Reginald felt something tighten in his chest. The child's sincerity was palpable, and there was a kind of serene strength in her that he rarely found, even in the most sophisticated adults who frequented his patisserie. "Teresa," "Please," he intervened, approaching the girl. "We have that red velvet cake that wasn't picked up and was going to be discarded anyway." The manager rolled her eyes but obeyed, disappearing into the back of the shop. Reginald took the opportunity to talk to the small visitor. "So today is your birthday, Sophia?" "Happy birthday." The girl nodded, a shy sparkle appearing in her eyes. "Thank you, sir. Aunt June said that a birthday is a day to be grateful for being alive, even if there isn't a party." Before Reginald could reply, Teresa returned with a small package, placing it roughly on the counter. "Here it is. It fell on the floor when we were packing. We cleaned it, but we couldn't sell it." Sophia looked at the package as if it were a treasure. Her small hands received it carefully, and her face lit up with a genuine smile that completely transformed her features. "Thank you very much. It's the best present I've ever received." She hugged the package against her chest. "Can I give a little piece to my mother too?" Teresa frowned, confused, but Reginald immediately understood the meaning of those words. His throat tightened. "Of course, Sophia. I'm sure your mother will love it." The girl thanked them again, and with the same discretion with which she had arrived, left through the patisserie door. Moved by a curiosity he didn't even understand himself, Reginald excused himself from Teresa and watched the child through the display window. Outside, Sophia sat on a park bench in front of the patisserie. With reverence, she opened the package and divided the small piece of cake into 2 unequal parts. She placed the smaller part on a clean handkerchief she took from her backpack and carefully laid it on the bench beside her. "See, Mom? I got a birthday cake for both of us, just like you always wanted," Reginald heard her say, looking up at the starry sky that was beginning to appear. "It's a little squashed, but the lady said it's red velvet cake. It must be very fancy. You always said that one day we would eat at the rich people's patisserie." A lump formed in Reginald's throat as he watched Sophia talk to the empty space beside her, with so much love and naturalness that she seemed to truly see someone there. She told her mother about her day, about how she had gotten some coins helping an old lady with her shopping at the municipal market, and how she planned to buy a new notebook for school. Teacher Denise said my essay was the best in the class, you know. She said I have talent. You always said that. Something in the scene awakened an emotion in Reginald that he hadn't felt in a long time. As the girl ate her piece of cake, savoring every crumb as if it were ambrosia, he remained motionless, witnessing a kind of celebration he had never seen in all the luxurious events for which he supplied his award-winning sweets. When Sophia finally got up, carefully putting the handkerchief with her mother's cake crumbs back into her backpack and walking away, Reginald returned to the shop, feeling strangely transformed. These street children are getting smarter and smarter with their sad stories, Teresa commented, closing the till. Tomorrow we'll have 10 of them at the door if this gets around. Reginald didn't answer. In his mind, he still saw Sophia's illuminated face upon receiving something that to him was so trivial. Their simple discarded piece of cake had become the center of a birthday celebration, full of dignity and love. Upon returning to his penthouse apartment in Mayfair that night, Reginald carried more than just the keys to the establishment and contracts for new orders. He carried with him the image of that girl and a question he couldn't answer. How could someone with so little show so much gratitude for life? When Reginald Alistair arrived at his luxurious apartment that night, he found his wife, Beatrice Alistair, sitting on the living room sofa, staring at the glass wall that revealed the illuminated city. A renowned psychologist with a practice on Oxford Street, Beatrice usually greeted him with enthusiasm, eager to share stories about her patients, preserving professional confidentiality, of course, or about the new social project she coordinated for NGOs in London. That night, however, something was different. Her eyes were red and swollen, and a crumpled handkerchief rested on her lap. On the coffee table, an open envelope revealed a medical clinic's letterhead. B. What happened? Reginald approached, placing his leather briefcase on the side table. She turned slowly, trying to hide her tears with a fragile smile that wouldn't convince even a stranger, much less the man who had shared her life for 12 years. Dr. Evans called today. The last treatment, it didn't work, her voice choked. 8 years, Reginald. 8 years of attempts, hormones, invasive procedures, hopes nurtured and then destroyed. He said we could try other clinics, but that we should reconsider our options. Reginald sat beside his wife and held her hands. He had met Beatrice in university, he studying gastronomy, she psychology, and since then they had built a life of material comfort and professional fulfillment together. The only dream that remained distant was that of starting a family. The words premature ovarian dysfunction had entered their lives 5 years ago, but they never stopped believing that science would find a way. B, my love, we still have alternatives. We can seek other specialists, perhaps abroad. No, Reginald, she interrupted him with surprising firmness, considering her emotional state. I can't bear to be pricked, medicated, treated like a defective machine anymore. Each new procedure only increases the disappointment. I need to accept that perhaps it's not my destiny to bear a child. Silence hung between them for a few moments, filled only by the distant sound of London traffic below. Reginald felt a sudden urge to share what he had witnessed that afternoon. Something strange happened today at the patisserie, he began, stroking his wife's hair. A little girl came in asking for a piece of expired cake. It was her birthday, and she had never had a cake before. Beatrice wiped away her tears, momentarily distracted from her own pain. And what did you do? I gave her a piece of red velvet that was going to be discarded. He paused, reliving the scene in his mind. But the incredible thing was what happened next. She went outside and shared the cake with her mother, who wasn't there. She talked to the sky as if her mother was sitting beside her. Beatrice, as a psychologist, immediately recognized the mechanism. It's common behavior in children who have lost loved ones. They maintain the connection through rituals and imaginary conversations. It helps with the grieving process. It wasn't just that, B, Reginald continued, his eyes shining with an emotion difficult to define. The way she valued that simple piece of cake, the genuine gratitude, made all our rich clients seem empty in comparison. And I couldn't stop thinking that maybe, he hesitated, unsure if he should continue. Maybe what, Reginald? Beatrice encouraged him, intrigued by the change in her husband's tone. "Maybe the universe is sending us a sign," he finally completed. "On the exact day we discovered another failed attempt to have a child without a family appears in my patisserie. I don't believe in coincidences, B." Beatrice stood up abruptly, crossing her arms in a defensive posture. "You're suggesting adoption?" Just like that, suddenly. Because of some random girl who appeared in your shop. "Reginald, this is a serious decision, not something impulsive based on momentary sentimentality. I'm not saying we should adopt this specific child," Reginald clarified, although something inside him disagreed with his own words. "I'm just reflecting that perhaps it's time for us to consider other paths to fulfill our dream of becoming parents." Beatrice took a deep breath, her posture softening slightly. "I've thought about it, you know, but I always wanted to try one more time. I always thought the next treatment would be the definitive one." She sat back down, exhausted. "Adoption is not an easy path in England, Reginald. It's years of waiting, bureaucracy, psychological evaluations, home visits. And wouldn't those be years well spent?" he asked softly. "If in the end we have a child to love." Before Beatrice could answer, Reginald's phone rang. It was Teresa, the patisserie manager. He answered, surprised by the call outside business hours. "Mr. Alistair? Sorry to bother you at this hour, but I thought you should know. That girl, the one with the cake. She's been appearing at the patisserie other times in recent weeks. Always very polite, asking if there were any leftovers. I usually sent her away, but Ms. Carmen from cleaning sometimes gave her some broken biscuits." Reginald felt his heart race, while Beatrice watched him with curiosity. "Do you know where she lives, Teresa?" "Not exactly, sir. But Miss Carmen said she often sees her in Kensington Gardens, near that old abandoned mansion. Sometimes alone, sometimes with other children. It seems she doesn't really have a fixed home." After hanging up, Reginald shared the information with Beatrice, whose expression alternated between professional concern and personal apprehension. "Reginald, there are many homeless children in London. You can't save all of them." "I know, Bea, but this girl, there's something special about her. The way she talks, how she behaves even in such difficult circumstances, and the fact that she came to me precisely today. I can't get it out of my head." Beatrice studied her husband's face, recognizing a determination she rarely saw in him, except when it came to his culinary creations. She sighed, partially yielding. "What do you want to do, then?" "But tomorrow I'm going to that park. I want to find her again, understand her situation better. Maybe we can help her in some way, regardless of the adoption issue. No child should be celebrating a birthday alone on the street." Beatrice nodded slowly, her professional training momentarily overriding her personal, emotional turmoil. "If you find her, be cautious. Vulnerable children develop complex defense mechanisms. Don't create expectations for yourself or for her." Reginald agreed, but internally he already felt an inexplicable connection with that small stranger. That night, while Beatrice finally fell asleep after hours of talking about future possibilities, he remained awake, looking at the starry sky visible through the wide window of his bedroom. In some way, he knew that his life was about to change completely, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a hope that had nothing to do with successful businesses or professional recognition. It was a more fundamental, more human hope, the possibility of making a real difference in someone's life. Before finally giving in to sleep, Reginald made a decision. He would personally prepare the most beautiful chocolate cake he had ever created and take it with him to Kensington Gardens the next morning. If the girl Sophia was there, he would ensure she had a real birthday cake, not leftovers or scraps, but something made especially for her, with all the care a child deserves on her special day. The London morning awoke lazily under a thin drizzle typical of the city. Reginald had spent half the night in the apartment kitchen, preparing a chocolate cake with gourmet chocolate truffle filling and Belgian ganache frosting. He decorated it with small sugar paste flowers, writing "Happy Birthday, Sophia" in tempered white chocolate. "You're really determined about this," Beatrice commented, finding him already dressed in the living room, with the cake carefully packed in a special Sweet Delights box. She was still wearing her silk robe, her eyes revealing a restless night's sleep. "I just want to make sure she has a decent birthday," Reginald replied, adjusting his tie. No one should celebrate with scraps that fell on the floor, much less a child. Beatrice hesitated, her fingers playing with the coffee cup she held. What if we don't find her? London is huge, and vulnerable children rarely stay in the same place for long. The use of the pronoun we did not go unnoticed by Reginald. He smiled, recognizing that despite her reservations, his wife had decided to accompany him. Then we'll donate the cake to some institution on the way. Either way, it will make someone happy. 40 minutes later, the couple parked their silver Volvo XC60 on Kensington High Street, near the main entrance to Kensington Gardens. The elegant green space in the heart of Kensington was a contrast of worlds. On one side, mansions and high-end buildings. On the other, evidence of the social inequality that defined the British metropolis. Teresa said she often sees her near the abandoned mansion, Reginald explained, carrying the cake box as they walked along the winding paths of the park. Sunday morning made the place busier than usual. Families walked their dogs. Elderly people played chess at fixed tables. Young people practiced Tai Chi under the centuries-old trees. The tranquil atmosphere contrasted with the anxiety Reginald felt. After almost an hour searching every corner of the park, Beatrice touched her husband's arm. "Reginald, maybe we should try again at another time. She might not be here now." "There," Reginald interrupted, pointing to a bench partially hidden under a huge fig tree. Sophia was sitting alone, wearing the same simple dress from the day before, her curly hair now tied in an improvised ponytail. Concentrated, she was drawing in a worn notebook resting on her knees. Beside her, the small, colorful backpack seemed to contain all her belongings. The couple approached slowly so as not to startle her. It was Sophia who noticed their presence first, raising her eyes from her drawing. Her initial look of apprehension turned into recognition as she identified Reginald. "Patisserie man?" she exclaimed, quickly closing her notebook. "Good morning." Reginald smiled, genuinely happy to have found her. "Good morning, Sophia. I hope we're not bothering you. We brought something for you." Sophia looked curiously at the box in his hands, then at Beatrice, who maintained a professional expression, as if evaluating a clinical situation. "This is my wife, Beatrice," Reginald introduced. "This is Sophia, the girl I told you about." Beatrice offered a restrained smile and a nod. "Hello, Sophia. It's a pleasure to meet you." The girl responded with surprising politeness. "The pleasure is mine, ma'am. You are as beautiful as the women in the magazines I see at the newsstands." The innocent comment eased the initial tension. Reginald indicated the empty space on the bench. "Can we sit for a bit? We brought something special for your birthday." The girl's eyes widened. "For me? Really?" Reginald nodded, placing the box on the bench between them and opening it carefully. The chocolate cake gleamed under the light filtered by the fig tree's leaves. Sophia held her breath, her small hands covering her mouth in genuine surprise. "It has my name written on it," she whispered, as if afraid that speaking aloud might make that vision disappear. "I made it especially for you," Reginald explained, feeling an unexpected emotion as he witnessed the girl's reaction. No one deserves to celebrate their birthday with leftovers. Silent tears began to stream down Sophia's face as she admired the cake without daring to touch it. "Can I take a picture first?" she asked timidly. "To show my mother later." Beatrice and Reginald exchanged glances, the psychologist recognizing the coping mechanism that kept the child's bond with her absent mother alive. "Of course," Beatrice replied, surprising her husband with the softness in her voice. "Do you want me to take the picture with you next to the cake?" Sophia nodded animatedly, wiping her tears with the back of her hands. From her backpack, she took out an old cell phone with a cracked screen. "It doesn't have a SIM card, but the camera still works," she explained, handing the device to Beatrice. As the psychologist positioned the phone to capture the image of Sophia next to the birthday cake, Reginald noticed something that had escaped his initial attention. Beside the girl, partially hidden between the bench and the backpack, was a photograph framed by an improvised picture frame made of colored cardboard and adhesive tape. The photo showed a young woman, with curly hair like Sophia's, smiling at the camera with the girl, appearing about 5 years old at the time, on her lap. In the background one could see Brighton, beach recognizable by its characteristic promenade. "Is that your mother?" Reginald asked gently, after Beatrice finished taking the photos. Sophia picked up the picture frame with reverential care. Yes, that's Mum. This photo was from our trip to Brighton, before she went to live in heaven. She caressed the image with her small fingers. She always told me that one day she would take me to eat a real cake, one of those fancy ones. Now I'm eating one and she's watching from above. Beatrice sat beside the girl, her professional training momentarily giving way to genuine empathy. Your mother would be very proud of you, Sophia. You are a very strong and polite girl. Sophia smiled, a sad smile that carried wisdom beyond her few years. She always said that education is the only thing no one can take away from us. The girl looked up at the sky. I promised I would keep studying even after she was gone. And where do you live now, Sophia? Reginald asked, trying to maintain a casual tone despite the apprehension he felt. The girl's hesitation was visible. She bit her lower lip, looking alternately at Reginald and Beatrice, assessing whether she could trust them. I stay in different places, she finally replied. Sometimes at Aunt June's house when she's not indisposed. Other times I stay here in the park, or at Miss Zelda's hostel when there's a vacancy. And your father? Beatrice asked softly. I never met my father. Mum said he travelled far away before I was born. Sophia shrugged, as if accepting that absence as a natural part of life. Reginald felt his heart clench. The girl's reality was even harsher than he had imagined. He exchanged a significant look with Beatrice, who seemed to be fighting an internal battle between the rational psychologist and the woman touched by the situation. Sophia, would you like to come have lunch with us today? Reginald invited impulsively. We can celebrate your birthday properly with a special lunch before the cake. The girl's eyes lit up, but soon the hesitation returned. Can I bring my mother's picture frame? I don't like to leave her alone for too long. Beatrice smiled the first time Reginald had seen her truly relax that morning. Of course you can, Sophia. I'm sure your mother would also like to participate in your birthday party. As they packed the cake and helped Sophia organize her few belongings, Reginald noticed that the girl carefully placed her drawing notebook in her backpack. For an instant, he glimpsed the page she was working on. A simple pencil drawing of a house with large windows, a flourishing garden, and 3 figures holding hands, a woman, a man, and a small child between them. That drawing, more than any words, revealed to Reginald what Sophia truly desired for her birthday, something much more valuable than any chocolate cake, no matter how sophisticated. Ready? He asked, offering his hand to the girl while Beatrice helped her with her backpack. Sophia nodded, holding the picture frame firmly with one hand and accepting Reginald's hand with the other. Together, the 3 walked through the park towards the car, an image that, seen from a distance, could easily be mistaken for a family on a quiet Sunday stroll. The Alistairs' apartment in Mayfair impressed Sophia from the moment the private elevator opened directly into the living room. With double-height ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows revealing London's urban landscape, the space was larger than any place the girl had ever been. Wow, it's like a castle, she exclaimed, still holding her mother's picture frame with one hand and Reginald's with the other. Are you really princes? Reginald smiled, delighted by her sincere reaction. We're not princes, Sophia. We've just been very lucky in life. Beatrice, who was walking a few steps ahead, stopped abruptly when she heard the girl's question. Something in the innocence of those words seemed to affect her deeply. She took a deep breath before turning with a contained smile. We'll prepare lunch while you can explore a bit. Do you want to see the apartment? Sophia nodded enthusiastically, though she didn't let go of the picture frame for an instant. Can I show my mother too? She's never seen such a beautiful place. Beatrice hesitated, her gaze meeting Reginald's in silent communication. Both knew they would need to carefully manage the girl's attachment to her deceased mother. Of course, the psychologist finally replied. I'm sure she would love to see it. While Reginald went to the kitchen to prepare birthday lunch, Beatrice led Sophia through the rooms of the spacious apartment. The girl reacted with admiration to each new space, the bathrooms with whirlpool tubs, the study with shelves full of books, the walk-in closet the size of an entire room. And this room? Whose is it? Sophia asked, stopping before a closed door. Beatrice felt her heart clench. It was the room they had prepared years ago when they started the first fertilization treatment. Decorated in neutral tones with a small bed, teddy bears, and a carefully selected children's library, it remained a monument to their unfulfilled hope. "It's a special room," Beatrice replied, opening the door slowly. "Sometimes we have visitors with children." Sophia entered the room with reverence, her eyes scanning every detail: the moon-shaped lamp, the fluorescent stars on the ceiling, the colorful books organized by size. In the center of the bed, a large teddy bear with open arms seemed to have been waiting for a hug for a long time. "It's the most beautiful room I've ever seen," Sophia whispered, approaching the bookshelf. Carefully, she placed her mother's picture frame on the shelf. "Look, Mum, isn't it beautiful?" Beatrice watched the scene from the doorway, a contradictory emotion taking hold of her. Part of her wanted to hug that child who spoke so tenderly to a photograph. Another part felt threatened by the possibility of what that presence represented in her carefully controlled life. "Come, Sophia, let's see if Reginald needs help in the kitchen," Beatrice called, unable to remain any longer in that room laden with unfulfilled expectations. In the gourmet kitchen, Reginald prepared cheese ravioli with pomodoro sauce, Beatrice's favorite dish since their trip to Italy on their 5th wedding anniversary. Sophia watched the pastry chef's every move, fascinated, sitting on a high stool by the counter. "You cook like the chefs on TV," she commented, as Reginald rolled out the dough thinly. "It's my job," he explained, winking at the girl. "Before I had the patisserie, I worked in restaurants in Europe. That's where I learned the secrets of the best sweets in the world." Sophia rested her chin on her hands, absorbing every word. "My mother also liked to cook. She made a chocolate cake that was the best in the world, even without fancy ingredients. She said the secret was to put love into the recipe." Reginald smiled, placing the first batch of ravioli in the boiling water. "Your mother was right, Sophia. Love is the most important ingredient in any recipe." Beatrice, who had quietly entered the kitchen, observed the interaction with mixed feelings. The ease with which Reginald connected with the girl contrasted with her own reserve. As a child psychologist, she knew exactly what she should do to gain the trust of a vulnerable child. But as a woman struggling with her own losses, she found herself paralyzed between professional compassion and personal fear. "Can I help set the table?" Sophia offered, getting down from the stool. "Of course," Beatrice replied, grateful for the opportunity to act. "The plates are in that cabinet, and the cutlery in the drawer just below." Working together, they set the table on the enclosed balcony that offered a panoramic view of the city. Sophia dedicated herself to the task with an almost adult seriousness, perfectly aligning the cutlery and folding the napkins with precision. "My mother taught me that we should always return people's kindness," she explained, noticing Beatrice's curious gaze. "She said that gratitude is what makes us truly human." Those words, spoken with such simplicity, touched Beatrice more deeply than any elaborate psychological theory she had studied in her years of training. There was a natural wisdom in that child that challenged her professional experience. Lunch proceeded in a surprisingly light atmosphere. Sophia talked about her school, which she still attended when she could, about her drawings and about how she helped Miss Zelda at the hostel in exchange for a place to sleep on colder nights. She spoke of her difficult reality without self-pity, as one who narrates objective facts of life. It was during dessert, the birthday cake accompanied by vanilla ice cream, that the conversation took an unexpected turn. "What was your mother's name?" Beatrice asked, watching Sophia carefully place a portion of cake next to the picture frame, which now occupied a place on the table. "Gabrielle Sanders," the girl replied proudly. "But everyone called her Gabby." Beatrice froze, her ice cream spoon suspended halfway to her mouth. Her eyes, suddenly wide, fixed on the photograph Sophia carried with such affection. "Gabrielle Sanders? From Brighton?" Sophia nodded, surprised. "Yes. Mom was born there." "How do you know?" Beatrice stood up abruptly, her chair scraping on the wooden floor. Reginald, confused, watched his wife turn pale. "B, what happened?" I need to see that photo up close," she asked, her voice trembling. Sophia hesitantly handed over the improvised picture frame. Beatrice held it with hands that visibly trembled. She studied the image for long seconds, her face a mask of shock and recognition. "It's her," she finally whispered. "It's Gabby. You knew my mother?" Sophia's voice was a mixture of astonishment and hope. Beatrice returned the picture frame to the girl, stepping back as if needing physical distance from that revelation. "We grew up together in Brighton. We were best friends in adolescence." Her voice faltered. "We lost contact when I came to London to study psychology. She stayed to study education there." Reginald watched the scene, astonished by the impossible coincidence unfolding before him. "She always talked about a friend from school," Sophia said, her eyes shining with the unexpected connection. "She said she was the smartest person she knew, that she would be a great doctor someday." Beatrice brought her hand to her mouth, long-buried memories surfacing in her consciousness. "We had a fight," she admitted, more to herself than to the others in the room. "Something silly about a boy we were both interested in. We said terrible things to each other. I came to London furious, vowing never to speak to her again. And then life went on. I built my career. I met Reginald. Mom never talked about any fight," Sophia commented innocently. "She only said good things about her friend from Brighton." Those simple words hit Beatrice like a physical blow. Gabrielle's generosity in preserving only good memories for her daughter contrasted painfully with her own resentment held for years. When your mother..." Beatrice couldn't complete the question. "It's been 3 years," Sophia replied, lowering her eyes to the cake. "She got very sick, and then she went to live in heaven. I stayed with Aunt June at first, but she started drinking a lot after she lost her job. Sometimes there was no food at home, so I started going out to look for it. Now she barely notices if I'm there or not." Reginald approached his wife, feeling she needed physical support. Beatrice trembled visibly, her face pale and her eyes tearful. "All this time," she murmured, "Gabby's daughter was on the streets of London, and I didn't even know she had a daughter. So I could have helped. I should have kept in contact." Sophia, sensing the woman's suffering, stood up and, in a surprising gesture, took Beatrice's hand in her small hands. "Mom said that people come in and out of our lives for a reason. Maybe the reason you separated was so you could find each other again through me." That wisdom, coming from a child who had faced more losses in 9 years than many adults in a lifetime, broke Beatrice's last emotional barriers. On impulse, she knelt and hugged Sophia, tears finally flowing freely down her face. "Forgive me," she whispered, not just to the girl in her arms, but also to the friend she would never see again. "Forgive me for not being there when you needed me." Reginald watched the scene, his own vision blurred by emotion. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was something deeper, a connection that defied any rational explanation. "Perhaps," he began, his voice hoarse with emotion, "perhaps some things are simply meant to happen." The days following the revelation completely transformed the dynamic in the Alistairs' apartment. Sophia was invited to stay temporarily, a word Beatrice initially used with caution, as if testing unstable ground. The room that for years had remained an untouched sanctuary of deferred hopes now housed the daughter of her former best friend. The adaptation was neither immediate nor easy. Beatrice oscillated between moments of genuine connection with Sophia and periods of emotional detachment, when the weight of guilt and lost opportunities seemed to suffocate her. In the first few nights, Reginald often found her on the balcony, looking at the illuminated city, silent tears marking her face. 8 years trying to have a child, she confessed on one of those nights, as Reginald hugged her shoulders, and suddenly, "Gabby's daughter appears in our patisserie. How did I not see the sign before?" "Some paths take longer to reveal themselves," he replied, kissing her forehead. "The important thing is that now Sophia has a safe place to stay." In the improvised room, Sophia quickly established a routine. She meticulously made her bed every morning, organized her few belongings carefully, and always reserved a prominent place for her mother's picture frame. In the first few nights, Reginald heard her quietly talking to the photograph, telling her about the new room, the delicious food, and how Beatrice seemed sad sometimes, even living in a castle. In the second week, Beatrice, overcoming her initial hesitation, took Sophia to buy new clothes, school supplies, and some toys. The psychologist observed with professional fascination and growing personal admiration how the girl chose each item with deliberate care, always asking the price first and opting for more economical alternatives. You don't need to worry about that. Sophia, Beatrice explained on one of these occasions, when the girl hesitated between two notebooks, choosing the cheaper one. We can buy whichever you prefer. Sophia looked at her with those deep eyes that seemed to carry wisdom beyond her years. Mom always said we shouldn't waste, even when we have a lot. The planet thanks us. At that instant, Beatrice recognized Gabrielle's voice, her environmentalist friend since adolescence, who organized selective waste collection at school when it was still new in England. The memory brought an involuntary smile, the first genuinely relaxed one since Sophia's arrival. Your mother was right. As always. Beatrice tucked a strand of hair behind the girl's ear. She was like that at school too, always thinking about the planet's future. Sophia's eyes lit up at the comment. Can you tell me more about when you were friends? The question, asked with so much hope, broke something within Beatrice. Not like destruction, but like the rupture of a dam that finally releases long-held waters. That afternoon, sitting in a coffee shop at the mall, Beatrice shared stories from adolescence, the adventures with Gabrielle, the dreams they shared, the promises to remain friends forever. Sophia drank every word as dry earth absorbs rain after a long drought, filling gaps in a family history she had never fully known. Your mother was the brave one, Beatrice recounted, idly stirring her already cold cappuccino. Once she confronted the school principal when he wanted to cut down the trees in the courtyard to build more classrooms. She organized a collective hug for the trees and got the support of a local councillor. The trees are still there today. Sophia smiled, recognizing her mother in that description. She taught me to talk to trees. She said they have stories to tell. We just need to learn to listen. A comfortable silence settled between them. Not the tense silence of the first few days, but something new. A shared space where memories of Gabrielle could exist without pain. Do you know what else I miss about her? Sophia asked after a few moments. The chocolate cake she made on Sundays. It wasn't fancy like the patisseries, but it tasted like comfort, Beatrice completed, surprising both of them. Gabby had been making that cake since she was 15. Her grandmother taught her. Sophia's eyes widened. You've eaten my mother's cake. Many times, Beatrice confirmed, a specific memory emerging with crystal clarity. In fact, the last time we saw each other before the fight, we were making that cake together for a university charity fair. On an impulse that surprised herself, Beatrice asked, Do you remember the recipe, Sophia? The girl sadly shook her head. I only remember it had a secret ingredient. Mom said it was what made the cake magical, but she never told me what it was. I was too small to help in the kitchen. That night, upon returning home laden with shopping bags, Beatrice was visibly transformed. Reginald, who was preparing dinner, immediately noticed the change. A sparkle in his wife's eyes that he hadn't seen in years, an almost palpable energy emanating from her. We have a project. Reginald, she announced, placing the bags on the sofa. We're going to recreate Gabby's chocolate cake. In the following weeks, the apartment's gourmet kitchen became the scene of an almost archaeological search for a lost recipe. Reginald, with his professional knowledge, experimented with different combinations of cocoa, sugars, and techniques. Beatrice scoured old university notebooks, looking for any notes she might have made about the famous cake. Sophia participated enthusiastically, tasting each new attempt with the seriousness of a food critic, always declaring, It's good, but it's still not Mum's. The search for the perfect recipe brought the three closer in ways no other conscious effort could have achieved. On weekend afternoons, amidst flour, eggs, and chocolate, stories flowed naturally. Beatrice shared teenage memories with Gabriel. Reginald recounted his culinary adventures around the world, and Sophia, increasingly comfortable, revealed small details of her life with her mother. And then, without her. It was Mum's birthday when she got very sick, she recounted one afternoon, while helping Beatrice sift flour. I wanted to make a surprise cake, but I didn't know how. When I got home from school, she had already been taken to the hospital. The naturalness with which the girl spoke about such painful events impressed Beatrice, whose professional training recognized signs of extraordinary resilience. You must miss her very much, Beatrice commented, carefully choosing each word. Every day, Sophia simply replied, continuing to sift. But she always said that as long as we remember someone, that person never truly leaves. It was during the 12th attempt to recreate the cake, almost a month after Sophia's arrival, that the definitive turning point in their relationship occurred. Beatrice had just taken a pan from the oven when, placing it on the marble counter, she noticed a different aroma. "There's something," Aunt, she began, frowning in concentration. Sophia, who was watching from the kitchen table, inhaled deeply and her eyes widened. "Cinnamon," she exclaimed, jumping from her chair. "It was cinnamon, the secret ingredient. Now I remember. Mom always put cinnamon in the cake and said it was our secret." Beatrice froze, the spatula suspended in the air. A sudden, vivid memory hit her. Gabrielle, at 16 in her parents' kitchen, adding cinnamon to the dark batter while conspiratorially whispering, "Don't tell anyone. B, this has been the Santos family's special touch since my great-grandmother." "How could I forget?" Beatrice whispered, unexpected tears blurring her vision. Reginald, who was entering the kitchen at that moment, witnessed a subtle but profound transformation. Beatrice, abandoning the spatula, opened her arms in a spontaneous gesture, and Sophia ran into her embrace, as if she had been waiting for it since the first day. "Let's add cinnamon to this batch," he suggested, understanding the importance of the moment without needing explanations. When the cake was finally ready, with the generous addition of cinnamon to the recipe, the aroma that filled the apartment was more than a combination of ingredients. It was the almost tangible presence of Gabrielle Sanders. The three sat at the kitchen table, a generous slice in front of each, and a fourth slice ceremoniously placed beside the picture frame. Sophia was the first to taste, closing her eyes as she chewed the first bite. When she opened them again, they were tearful. "This is it," she simply declared. "It's Mum's cake." Beatrice tasted it next, and the flavor unleashed a cascade of memories, study afternoons filled with chocolate, shared confidences, youthful dreams, promises of eternal friendship. In a moment of crystal-clear clarity, she understood that that cake symbolized everything she had lost due to pride and stubbornness, and everything she now had the opportunity to rebuild. "Sophia," she called, placing her fork on the plate, "I would really like you to stay with us. Not temporarily, but forever, if you want to." "Of course." The girl looked at her with wide eyes, then at Reginald, who nodded in silent confirmation, and finally at her mother's portrait. "Do you think Mom would be happy?" she asked in a low voice. "I'm absolutely sure," Beatrice replied with a conviction that surprised herself. "In fact, I think she somehow guided us here. As you said, maybe that was the reason our lives separated, so that we could find each other again through you." Sophia was silent for a few moments, processing those words. Then, with a wisdom that often left adults speechless, she asked, "Can I call you Aunt B for now? And then, if I feel in my heart that it's right, maybe Mom of the Heart." "I don't think my mum in heaven would be sad about that." Beatrice, unable to speak through the lump in her throat, just nodded, reaching out to hold Sophia's small hand across the table. Reginald completed the circle, covering their hands with his own. At that moment, as the aroma of chocolate and cinnamon filled the kitchen, something new began to take shape, not to replace what had been lost but to honor it and give it continuity. A family redefined by love and the shared memory of a woman who, even absent, had found a way to reunite those she had left behind. 6 months passed since that afternoon, when the aroma of cinnamon had sealed a silent pact between Beatrice, Reginald and Sophia. The adoption process, initiated the week after that kitchen conversation, progressed with the typical slowness of British bureaucracy, but with the added impetus of the Alistair's social influence and the unconditional support of the social worker assigned to the case, who, by one of those coincidences that no longer surprised anyone, had been Beatrice's student in her postgraduate psychology program. Life in the Mayfair apartment had found a new rhythm. Sophia now attended St. Paul's School, where she quickly distinguished herself with her sharp intelligence and maturity that impressed both teachers and classmates. At school meetings, Beatrice and Reginald sat side by side, a union that grew stronger with each exemplary report card, each poetry presentation, each small achievement of the girl they now called their daughter, even though they were officially awaiting the finalization of legal procedures. The room that was once a sanctuary of unfulfilled hopes had been completely transformed. The walls, previously in neutral tones, now displayed a mural painted by Sophia and Beatrice during a rainy weekend, a representation of Kensington Gardens with its centuries-old trees, inhabited by fantastic characters inspired by the girls' favorite books. Gabrielle's picture frame held a place of honor on the shelf, now accompanied by recent photographs. Sophia on Reginald's birthday, the trio on a trip to Cornwall during the July holidays, the girl smiling beside her new best friend, Julia, the daughter of the neighbor on the 12th floor. It was on a Saturday afternoon, while preparing the now traditional batch of Gabby's cake, as they affectionately called the rediscovered recipe, that Reginald presented an idea he had been cultivating for weeks. "I was thinking," he began as Sophia beat the batter with the concentration of a small chef, "about expanding Sweet Delights, opening an annex space to the patisserie, a kind of social cafe." "Social how?" Beatrice asked, interested. The psychologist had reduced her workload at her practice to spend more time with Sophia, but lately she had shown restlessness, as one seeking a new purpose. A space where we could teach confectionery skills to vulnerable young people. Reginald looked significantly at Sophia, who was now paying full attention to the conversation. "Using Gabby's cake recipe as a starting point." The girl's eyes lit up at the mention of her mother's legacy. "It could be called the Gabrielle Project," she suggested, putting down the wooden spoon. "Mom would love to know that her cake was helping other children." Beatrice was silent for a few moments, absorbing the idea. As a psychologist, she knew the transformative power that structured activities could have in the lives of young people at social risk. As a woman who had recently rediscovered the meaning of family, she understood the value of creating spaces of belonging. "We could go beyond confectionery," she finally said, enthusiasm growing in her voice. "Offer psychological support, academic tutoring, career guidance. I have colleagues who would volunteer. We could transform lives just as ours was transformed." Reginald smiled, recognizing in that response the same passion that had made him fall in love with Beatrice years ago. The ability to take a simple idea and transform it into something grand, meaningful. "I've already spoken with my accountant," he continued. "We can create a non-profit foundation linked to the patisserie. Part of the sales profits would fund the project, in addition to seeking partnerships with companies and donations." Sophia, who was following the conversation with growing excitement, timidly suggested, "Can we start with the children from Ms. Zelda's hostel? There are many boys and girls there who have never tasted a real cake like me." The project came to life with surprising speed. In just 3 months, the space next to the Sweet Delights patisserie, previously occupied by a clothing store that had closed during the pandemic, was completely renovated. Large windows allowed passers-by to see inside, where an industrial kitchen with 6 workstations awaited the first apprentices. On the walls, in addition to the name, "The Gabrielle Sanders Project" in elegant letters, was the motto suggested by Sophia: "Transforming lives with flour, chocolate and love." The inauguration, purposely scheduled to coincide with what would have been Gabrielle's birthday, brought together journalists, municipal authorities, NGO representatives, and, of course, the first 20 children selected to participate in the program. Among them, many familiar faces from the hostel where Sophia had found shelter during difficult times. Reginald, impeccable in his chef's uniform, gave the official welcome, explaining the project's origin and mission. Beatrice, by his side, presented the multidisciplinary team of volunteers, psychologists, educators, nutritionists, who would support the holistic development of the participants. But it was Sophia who truly captured everyone's attention when she stepped forward to tell her story. "A year ago, I was alone, hungry, and I walked into that patisserie asking for a piece of expired cake to celebrate my birthday," she began, pointing to the neighboring establishment. Her voice, normally shy, gained strength as she spoke. "Today I am here to share with you my mother, Gabrielle's special recipe, a cake that is not just a dessert, but a symbol of love, memory, and hope." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when Sophia concluded her brief speech. Journalists' cameras captured the moment when Beatrice and Reginald embraced her collectively, an image that would grace the front page of the city's main newspapers the next day, accompanied by headlines such as "From Beggar to Inspiration, the story that transformed a patisserie into a social project," and The cake that built a family and now feeds dreams. The project's first official class, taught jointly by Reginald and Sophia, taught the chocolate and cinnamon cake recipe to the 20 participating children. Each received a personalized apron and a kit with basic confectionery utensils they could take home. Beatrice watched from the doorway, moved to see the ease with which Sophia explained the importance of cinnamon, the secret ingredient. That makes all the difference. And how Reginald complimented with technical tips on the ideal oven temperature and the correct consistency of the batter. Among the apprentices, one particular girl caught Beatrice's attention. Smaller than the others, with kinky hair tied in colorful braids and eyes that carried the same melancholy Sophia had when they first met her. Clara remained a little distant, observing everything with intensity, but participating minimally. During the break, while the children enjoyed the cake they had prepared, Beatrice approached her. "Are you enjoying the class, Clara?" The girl nodded shyly, licking a chocolate crumb from the corner of her mouth. "It's the best cake I've ever eaten," she confessed in a low voice. "I wish I could make it for my little brother, but we don't have an oven at the shelter." Beatrice felt her heart clench. According to the social worker's records, Clara and her brother Michael, just 4 years old, had lost their parents in a car accident the previous year, and with no close relatives, were placed in the municipal shelter. "You know," Beatrice began, choosing her words carefully, "that part of our project includes finding families who can foster children like you and your brother, temporarily or permanently." Clara's eyes widened. "Like adoption." "That too, but there are other possibilities, such as the foster family program. These are people prepared to receive children, while permanent situations are defined. It would be you and your brother together." "Of course." Clara considered the information for a few moments, watching Sophia across the room, who was helping a boy clean chocolate spilled on his workstation. That girl, the owner's daughter, she was adopted too, right? "I heard the other kids talking. She's in the final process of adoption," Beatrice confirmed. "She came into our lives unexpectedly and transformed everything. She taught us that family is much more than blood ties." Clara was silent for a moment, as if processing a complex idea. "You and your husband, do you think you could meet my brother Michael? He's very good, hardly any trouble. And he's very smart, he already knows all the letters of the alphabet." The request, made with such simplicity and hope, caught Beatrice off guard. But before she could answer, Sophia approached, bringing an extra slice of cake. "Hi, Clara. I saved a bigger piece for you to take to your brother. Reginald told me you have a little brother at the shelter." Clara accepted the package with eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you. Michael will love it." Sophia sat beside them, a comfortable and familiar presence. "You know, when I lived on the streets, I always shared what I got with my mother, even though she wasn't here anymore," Sophia said confidentially, as one sharing a valuable secret. "It's important to take care of our family no matter where we are." Clara nodded seriously. "It's just me and Michael now. I have to take care of him." Beatrice watched the interaction with an emotion she couldn't fully name. There was something deeply symbolic in that moment. Sophia, who had arrived at the patisserie asking for cake scraps, was now sharing abundance with another child in a similar situation. The cycle of care that began with a rejected piece of cake continued, expanding in ever-widening circles of generosity and connection. That night, after the successful inauguration, Beatrice, Reginald, and Sophia celebrated with a special dinner at home. As they savored ravioli, still the family's favorite dish, the conversation inevitably turned to Clara and her brother. "She asked me if we could meet Michael," Beatrice recounted, carefully observing the reactions of the other two. "She said he's good and hardly any trouble." Reginald exchanged a significant look with Sophia, who paused her forkful halfway to her mouth. "And what did you say, Mom of the Heart?" the girl asked, using the term she had adopted in recent months to refer to Beatrice, a compromise that respected both the new bond and Gabrielle's memory. Beatrice smiled, caught by surprise by the simplicity of the question. "I said I would talk to you first. After all, we are a family, and important decisions involve everyone." Sophia placed her fork on her plate, her expression taking on that almost adult seriousness that sometimes emerged in crucial moments. Do you know what my mother always said? That people come into our lives for a reason. I think we met Clara today for a reason too. Reginald smiled, recognizing the wisdom that continued to surprise them daily. What do you think, Sophia? About meeting this Michael? The girl did not hesitate. I think every child deserves a real birthday cake. And a family that loves them. If we can offer that, why not? 3 weeks later, the Gabriel Sanders project received unexpected national attention when the country's largest television network produced a special report on the initiative. The cameras captured not only the confectionery classes, but also the moment a new family was formed. Beatrice and Reginald signing the papers as foster parents for Clara and Michael, while Sophia, radiant, taught the 4-year-old boy to spell his new temporary surname. The report concluded with a powerful image: the 5 people in the project's industrial kitchen preparing the famous chocolate and cinnamon cake together. Michael, standing on a stool, sprinkled cinnamon over the dark batter under Sophia's watchful eye. Clara and Reginald decorated the top with strawberries forming a heart, and Beatrice, in the background, discreetly placed a framed photograph on the shelf behind them. Gabrielle Sanders, smiling on Brighton Beach, now officially the spiritual godmother of the project that transformed lives with the simple magic of a homemade cake. At Sophia's 10th birthday party, held at the Gabriel Project headquarters, the decoration included photos of all the children and teenagers who had passed through the program in recent months. Over 100 smiling faces, many of whom had already been reintegrated into their families or found new homes through the support network created by Beatrice. The most emotional moment of the celebration was when Sophia received her most anticipated gift, the official adoption certificate, with her name now legally registered as Sophia Sanders Alistair, a combination that honored both her origins and her new beginning. As she cut the cake, the same chocolate and cinnamon cake that had united that improbable family, Sophia asked to speak, surprising everyone with the maturity of her brief speech. "A year ago, I asked for a piece of expired cake and received so much more: a new family, a new home, and the chance to keep my first mother's legacy alive," she said, looking at Gabrielle's photograph that watched the scene from the wall. "Today we celebrate not only my birthday, but the proof that when we share what we have, be it a cake, a home, or simply love, everything multiplies." With tears in their eyes, Beatrice and Reginald watched their daughter blow out the candles, surrounded by Clara, Michael, and dozens of other children whose lives had been touched by the Gabriel Project. The little girl who once shared a discarded piece of cake with an absent mother was now the center of an entire community, united by the simple power of a gesture of generosity that had expanded far beyond the walls of a luxury patisserie. At that moment, as the aroma of chocolate and cinnamon filled the air, no one doubted that from somewhere Gabrielle Sanders smiled, proud of the daughter who continued her journey, not as a victim of a tragic loss, but as the protagonist of a story of hope that was just beginning to be written. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Sophia, Beatrice, and Reginald has touched your hearts as much as it has touched ours. To continue experiencing emotions like this, we have a special playlist with other British stories that celebrate the power of human connection and hope. Find it by clicking here on the side. If you were moved by this journey of overcoming and new beginnings, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life in all its forms. We would love to know what you thought of this story in the comments. After all, just like Gabrielle's chocolate cake, our stories are made with a special ingredient: the affection for you who follow us.